Welcome to one more round with Josh Norris. Today I'm very excited to have my friend Shane Orlando with us today. He's a serial entrepreneur, president of National First Response, Orlando Auto Body, and Orlando Development. Shane is an avid hunter, boater, and motorcyclist, and a proud father of 4 children. We're going to talk about all kinds of fun stuff. I've known you for several years now, watched your businesses and seen some of your successes that, quite honestly, you're one of the most knowledgeable business guys I know. So thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, well, thanks you. And I would say that I'm probably very passionate, but I do make a lot of mistakes. So thank you for the most knowledgeable. But I think it's just sheer grit.
Yeah. Well, and that's it, right? You make mistakes and you learn from it. So
absolutely.
So let's kind of give people a little bit of a background of, because you if I remember correctly, you were 13 when you kind of started working in the home building space. Is that right?
Yeah, I was a carpenter. Prior to that, I had a paper out for all of these people out there. Granted, it's probably not as often anymore, but if you see paper out on somebody's resume, you need to hire them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like for whatever reason, I couldn't get a paper out when I was a kid, but I was the landscaper. So when I was like 9, 10, knock on doors. And,
yeah, hire that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you started in a home building when you were younger, and then, were you always kind of entrepreneurial like that? I mean, where did that come from?
Well, I probably couldn't answer that question 20 years ago as well as I could today, but I now have 4 children and lots of brothers and sisters, and we've seen a lot of success in our family, and I wished I could answer that in a different way, but I can't. And what I know about it and seeing it in my kids is there's something about the personality that's inherent to maybe genes or, I would say upbringing, but, I'm so busy I haven't spent a lot of time with my children, but each one of them in a very young age have had the desire to paint curbs, lemonade stands, wash cars, knock doors, take trash out for people, whatever they could do to make money, reinvent something that was already out. Unbeknownst to them, that new invention was out also, but that kind of mindset. And so fine that it's in my children, but it's also in a lot of my brothers and sisters in our family, and they all do really, really well. And so I tend to believe there's something inherent maybe into your personality traits.
Well, I mean, so brothers and sisters, were you all raised in the same home, same parents, or?
Yeah, we'll have a unique background, right? So there's 9 of us, and 2 of us have the same mom and dad. Okay. So there's, and they're broke up quite a bit, and so the immediate ones that were with my mother, we all have kind of the similar backgrounds, So.
Was your mom like that then?
My mom was a nurse. My parents were hippies, and great people, and I wouldn't change anything there. But honestly, we're just driven in some kind of an interesting way. My mom is an incredible nurse. She's 70 today, and she will outwork most people that you see. So great work ethic for sure. And then the mind thing is the thing I maybe speak more to, the genetic side of things and just problem solving, which most humans have, but some people at more accelerated rates than others. So.
Right. So you kind of grew up in a home, then you saw work ethic, obviously your brothers and sisters. Because I come from a similar type of family where, like, I literally have no brothers and sisters that aren't half brothers and sisters. So I grew up with my dad, my brother there, but then I had a brother of 2 sisters, 20 years. But we're all different, like completely different. Like I'm definitely the more driven one, and also probably the more pain in the ass than the rest of them. But like, I agree with you. I think personality and then just like genetics are different.
I think genetics have something to do with it. And to speak to that, right? Like my dad, and of course they were all old school, but he was a carpenter, and he was the type that came home and he was done at 5, and he didn't do anything after 5, right? And so we had all of it, and some of that, as most people know, some challenges in your life can produce some pretty good habits, right? Depending on how you look at them. And so I was always like, my dad coined the phrase, why do today what you could put off tomorrow?
Yeah.
Although he's great and people loved him, he was a carpenter, and our house had a crappy front door and could always use an extra room built or something fixed around the house, and he wouldn't raise a finger, So we did, the kids did. We all fixed the house up and added on and did whatever we want. But yeah, who knows? I mean, some of that has to contribute to where you end up.
So what was your first business that you started?
Oh, I literally at 17, I was sitting on the crews with my dad's framing crew. He was the lead guy there, and I remember looking around at one lunch, and I thought, well, every one of these guys I'd been working with for 3 or 4 years now, and every one of they were in their 30s, but they looked like they were 60 from the sun, right? Framing in Arizona back in the 80s, and so all their cars were junk, and their clothes were junk, and they looked old, and for certainly not vanity reasons, I was like, well, I just don't want this to be me, and if I continue to do this, by the time I'm 30, this will be what I look like, so, and or what I do. And so I got up and left, and I never went back. I previously bought a few cars and fixed them up in my front yard, and I had a handful of people that, had given me their cars to fix or paint, and I, with my brother, decided to open a body shop. So we took our tax returns and opened a shop in Tempe, and we had a month to pay rent again, drum up work, and the rest is history. We did that for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And never worked at a body shop in my life, but that doesn't matter. You learn everything you do anyhow. So,
what was your favorite cars to work on?
Well, it's funny because as many cars as we've painted, and as many have been in magazines, and as popular as a lot of the models are, I get asked a lot. Right? I had a lot of cars I'd built for myself. Some I liked more than others, but for me they were always like ends to a mean to an end. Right? Like I'd get this one done to get to the next one. And they were more of a marketing piece in the end, but I didn't pay so much attention to the makes, the models, the taillights, the years, the motors, were certainly important to our clients. This is why we were painting their cars. For me, it was how many hours and what's it going to cost and how can I get it done quick and deliver what I promised. So I like muscle cars. I like a lot of the Chevy C10 stuff, and ironically today those are real popular. But I was heavily vested originally in doing paint jobs for people with muscle cars and hot rods and that kind of thing. And for about 15 years I did that, and we did all the show circuits and built a great reputation for quality at the time. And meantime, those same clients would bring us their wrecked cars. They'd bring a wrecked car and they'd have an insurance estimate, and twice what I was painting their Camaro for. And I said, well, I'll fix this, and I did that in 3 days, gave it back to them, and worked for the next month on their car. So it didn't take me very long to decide I should probably be fixing wrecks more so than this. And so ironically, there's been a couple turndowns in the meantime, and so some of that custom work went away, and fortunately by the time that happened, I was doing about 90% collision work and only 10% custom stuff. So.
And I'll bet you if you were to ask 10 people that don't really know the industry, they'd be like, oh yeah, there's probably way more money in custom, right? But there's obviously volume in collision and a lot more can be lucrative, right?
Well, it's funny because I could have been on TV shows and I could have had all those programs because for 15 years there was only a handful of people doing that, and here in the Valley maybe 4 or 5 to the extent that I was. I didn't have aspirations to doing any of that, but that's where the industry went. And then there was a turn down in the late 90s and all that went away, and I was lucky to have been doing insurance work because there had been a few more custom shops that popped up that all went out of business because all they did was that work. Now you'd think I had a crystal ball. I didn't. Mind you, a few years later it popped back up and it became extremely profitable, and then that died out a bit, and then now it's a huge industry. The kind of money you can make in hot rods, like the Condiggit show and some of those guys, it just dwarfs what I'm doing in the collision industry, to be honest with you. But at the same time, that pool of people that do that is shrinking. We don't have a bunch of people going into those careers, so it's really challenging. It's challenging for the collision industry, which tends to have a little bit more of a professional base, career-based type technicians, and less instead of enthusiasts and hobbyists. And so it's all being challenged, but so there was a time where I was like, darn it, I should have stayed in customs. And then, oh wow, I had a crystal ball, thank God I didn't. And then, oh crap, I should have. And then, it always changes.
Well, it's like commercial real estate, residential, like they're always doing this number over a long enough time period, and it's similar. So I kind of identified that. How did you get a lot of your business in the beginning? Like, what did you do to market yourself?
Well, we talked off camera a little bit about willing your business
Yeah.
to willing your business to succeed. And by the way, I don't suggest that anybody will their business to succeed. If I had it all to do over again, I would work at a body shop for a short amount of time. I'd probably have taken some classes, looked for a mentor, which I always suggest today. I didn't even know there was those back then, but I willed it to death, which is the hardest way to build a business.
What does that look like? What does
Oh,
willing it
you
look
just, I mean, you can tell by somebody's face, they're squinting a lot and just very like, I got to do this. And so, I might hear about a lead from a friend or family member who wrecked their car, and boy, I would be on the phone or on their front door, can I fix your car? Because it was fix that car or starve, or paint that car or starve. And so, it was be at every car show. It was working 7 days a week for 10 years, right, with the occasional day off, and in a lot of cases 12 to 15 hours a day. So that's willing your business to work, because I later learned how to better manage my time, how to charge the right amount of money to value my time and my worth, and so then as all those things changed, I bought some more time back.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit, because you said you had a landmark was something you had experienced, like a 3-day seminar, and that kind of helped open your eyes to not having to will your business to win. What were the things you changed?
Oh, it was more time management than anything, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. They have what they think they should be doing, and in some cases they've been doing it for so long it's a habit. But to really look at that and evaluate whether those are producing results or not, is hard to do when, especially if what you have for yourself is a product of the current actions you're taking. Like, how do you pull one out without the house of cards falling in on itself, right? And that's really hard to do. And we talked, near-death experiences are very enlightening for people, and so are some programs. And there's a handful of programs, and there's books that make a difference for people, and happened to be for me the Landmark Forum, which gave me my life back, and then of course a lot of time, and it just added clarity to what I was already doing. And so I was a guy that was 6,000 minutes a month on my phone, which is 40 hours, right? That's a lot of time. Plus I painted and did the work and did the estimates and tried to keep some kind of social life, and had kids, 4 kids. And so I had great results out of that program, and later on decided to look. It happens over time, but a year later I had reorganized my life to where what was important, might be things on your list that you can do, but why don't I do them on Thursday and not today, because I'll be on that side of town, right? And that's one example, but there's a whole bunch on there that you just won't do anymore. They don't produce results. They're in no way improving your results, and so or productive. So just that alone, I think within 2 years, I mean, if my ringer was on, the fact that it didn't ring once then would be a big deal. I can go a week without my phone ringing now.
Wow.
And I did that 12 years ago. So something changed, right?
Well, so the way I picture that when you tell me that, it's like you basically said, okay, I'm going to observe everything that I'm doing, and I'm going to see what's working, what's not, which, especially when you're working super hard and you're doing 7 days a week, and you feel like, and I've been there, like I feel like I'm doing every freaking thing I can, but it's just like a damn hamster on a wheel type of thing. And it's not that there's not money and there's some fruits to the labor, but you're not enjoying it. So it's hard sometimes for your ego to look at everything really and say, do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? But until you do that and start to reorganize, like, you can't get different results.
Well, and then in some cases, how do you have access to even observing that without either a coach or a mentor or a bump on the head, So an example I could use is early on we used to paint. People would bring their brand new cars, and we'd paint the door handles and bumpers and grills and customize them a little bit, right? Well, 10 years later, we're still doing that. But our business is totally different. And the time it takes and the money that generated to do those kinds of things for people is completely not worth it anymore. But I've been doing it for 10 years, and I don't know any better. You know, if you have one come back and some paint peels off of something, you have to buy a door handle or remove the paint and repaint it, and you made $220 on that job. It's all for nothing, and that happened often, right?
Yeah.
You know, with the volume you do, it's inevitable things are going to come back, and so that's one example. But there's more that would be less obvious, that having being smart about things and having a mentor or some course that has you reevaluate your actions can provide. You know, this. How do you do that? So yeah, we got into that a bit ago. It was good. But I later, you know, I in the middle there, I started a construction company too. You know, and so I was doing. Home
You were
builds.
building some like really nice homes, like multi-million-dollar homes, right?
Yeah, I did like from 03 to 07, I did 45 really nice homes all over the East Valley. Had I been doing in the Northeast Valley, in that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. You know, there's something to learn about that too, and that the price per square foot that an area brings for the same amount of effort virtually is something to look at. But it was fun, and I learned a lot. And of course, 07, that all went away, and then I took that business and turned it into a restoration business. And we still did home builds, but until the banks freed up lending for construction loans, was that even something that happened? And that fired back up about 4 or 5 years ago when you start to see houses everywhere. So lending loosens up a bit on that, and the economy loosens up. Of course, it's all going to tighten up now again. So
Right. Was there a favorite house that you built that you can think of?
there is. I have a really cool. My second home I ever designed and built was really beautiful, but the first and second one I designed were incredible and should be Street of Dreams type homes. They're in the East Valley. The last one I built and sold was pretty. It was in a different kind of style than I'm used to, but the one I'm about to build is probably going to be the best.
Yeah.
It's a Santa Barbara style home that I'm going to be building in Arcadia for my family, and it'll certainly be the nicest of all of them. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, you just built a home.
I know.
Like a year and a half ago.
I
Your own
know.
home,
I know.
which is beautiful. I have seen pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. That was fun, and it's a funny story. I won't get into the details, but we listed it for the mother of my children to sit, and just to drum up business in the area, you know. And someone came in and offered us more money than we could refuse, so we took it. And so we immediately bought a lot within a week or 10 days, and started designing our next home. And the part of that, like everything, when you asked what's my favorite car, really the process. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Mostly I'm a creative person, and so the process is the fun part. And people say, well, you know, well, do you want to buy this car? Why would you sell it? I'd keep it forever. I'm done.
Right.
And oftentimes I still have a handful of cars that we're building, and I'll have people come in, so what are you going to do with this one? And the answer is, I'm doing it. I'm building it. I'm not going to do anything with it. That's what we're doing, is what we're doing, right? So.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting thing that you're saying there, because it's like the process of building when you're creative and you're an artist. It's not about necessarily the end result and keeping that forever. It's about doing it, like during the time and being creative.
Yeah, it gets missed. I'd like to take credit for that comment, but I have a really close friend who had observed me doing that my whole life and said it to me, and I did the same thing you did. I said, that's very interesting. That's a great way of putting it. So you certainly enjoy the process, and then it's bittersweet when you're done in a lot of cases, because my mind is off to thinking about what to do next. I certainly have to make sure that I mention too that when talking about like what is it about being an entrepreneur, I said some of it's genetics. It has to be, because I don't feel special. I dropped out of high school 3 times, you know, and I've been to college a few times, but it takes me 2 seconds to fill out the application. I put my name and I hand them a check.
Yeah.
I don't need any of my past history. I don't need the credits. I don't need to follow me. I just want the information. So, and they'll take your money, you know. So, GED or not, which I don't even have that, but I would credit a lot of my success to just healthy habits and, you know, not being lazy. So my habits and things that I like to do produce results, right? I wish it was more, you know, exciting than that. But when I look at what I do and my routine and how healthy work-life balance, all of that produces the results that I have. And I tend to say life-work balance, because I have not done more today than I did as a 13-year-old or even an 8-year-old. When I was very young, I was never home. I'd get home at 10 and my mom would ask me where I was all day. And if I wanted to do something, I said yes, and then my brain figured out how I could do that. So that includes any leisurely trips through my entire teens and 20s. It was like, all right, yeah, I'll go. If someone asked, I'd go. If there was something to do, I did it. And it's funny how your brain will figure out how to do it. You know, and so it's you can observe for yourself, but when you ask somebody to do something, if the first thing they say is no, and then they figure it out, that's a terrible habit. And it's a habit they don't know they have.
Yeah.
Back to talking about being able to look at your life and evaluate how you make decisions and your choices and your actions, that's a terrible one that I see everywhere.
Yeah.
It looks like you might have to convince somebody to do something with you. Well, if you observe those people, you know the ones I'm talking about, or the instances that it comes up, and we all do it. I mean, I might say no to something, and it's generally for some reason that that's back there that I have to sort out before I can say yes, or it's a bad habit. And so I tend to say yes, and my whole life I've figured it out. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and there's something to that. Like, saying yes, I think, is important, certainly to experiences and stuff. But then, like, for me, learning how to say no to certain things, if that makes sense.
That was the hardest lesson I ever learned.
Yeah.
It took me 5 years
Yeah.
of working on it hard, really, really hard. It's a whole nother conversation probably, but mine lived in codependency and wanting to help people, and how helping can make you feel good, and that's very real. That's why people contribute and donate and spend their time. But when it's unhealthy, it can be very, very bad and harmful to you, your life, and your family. So I had a little bit of a version of that, My whole family likes to help and do what we can, and in some cases it's too much. It's a thing to learn.
Yeah.
It's a thing to learn. Are you helping or are you hurting? And who are you hurting, them or you?
Right.
And so it's a tough one.
Yeah, and like, is that balance? Like, am I hurting myself while helping them? And can I hurt myself a little bit to get them where they want, or is it unhealthy?
Yeah.
Am I doing that consistently? Yeah. No.
Yeah, The Codependent No More is a great book for every person. It's a great book. It changed my life. And again, whether you think you are or not, it's a great book. It's a lot of insight into healthy habits and unhealthy habits. For
Codependent
people.
or
It's called Codependent No More.
No More. Okay.
It's a great book. I don't know the author off the top of my head, but I can give you that if need.
No, I'll check it out. We'll
Yeah.
put it out in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. You can get your life back. A lot of people can get their life back with that also.
Yeah.
We're interesting creatures. It's so funny because you can talk like this about people's business, and then behind the scenes there's just so much more going on. That's why personal development is so important, and mental health. I had a friend of mine also tell me he'd rather have mental health over physical health all the time, and it's I never forgot it, and it was profound.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, you get it, right? And just ponder on that for a minute. We won't go into it, but it's so if you're a little out of shape, great, but if you're mentally really challenged,
Yeah.
boy, how do you fix this? I mean, so
Right. No, if you're a freaking head case and you're not okay up here, it doesn't matter how good you look. I mean, you can look at a lot of professional athletes, certainly in the football realm. How many of them have freaking specimen bodies, but didn't take care of their noggin, and like, they don't have the quality of life.
Well, even in my life, right? Remember I said at 39 I took a course and it changed my life. I was very unhealthy mentally. I hadn't worked on myself at all, and I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't any of that. But really, what happened to me in my transformation is I started taking care of me, which then changed lives for everyone around me and my future and so my children's lives, and so.
That's you. So I know you have National First Response that you're president of and involved in that. So, as a businessman, like, what are the hardest things you've had to learn, or what are the most important things that you would give to a young person getting into business?
It's been a half a dozen times or so I've been asked to speak at like high schools and vocational schools and stuff, and it's been over 20 years since I've done that, so this is going back to my 30s. And my advice today is still the same as it was then, and that's, fine if you go into the trades or get into a business, but college may not be for everybody, and it certainly has its purpose, but take some accounting classes and some business classes and then continue to work on yourself, right? You don't hit 18 and suddenly who you are is who you are the rest of your life, and if you believe that, you're going to hold yourself back. It's a terrible thing. A lot of people do, though, right? This is what I'm capable of, and that's it. So I'm going to just live this life inside of those means. Well, it's not accurate. So take some classes. I would have been 10 years ahead had I not had to learn some of the financial lessons. And believe me, they come along all the time. There's always some new one. Learning how to delegate's a huge one. That's huge. If you start a business and you're doing, and just probably ringing over there, you did everything, and then so your first employee, and learning how to delegate things to them and not take it back from them, and then micromanage. I mean, that's all really, really challenging. I didn't fully understand business plans, but there's a lot of businesses that people should do a pro forma on before they ever start them, because if they work on paper, they'll work in reality, and so a lot of people will build a business through passion, which is fine, but maybe there is the kind of lifestyle they hope it produces isn't at the end of that, and you're working with an agency, you get a lot of new business people, I assume. And I don't know how you handle that, but I've dealt with people that were trying to put sound deadening on cars, and it's this great idea and this new chemical, but there's 30 other products that do that, and they don't know because they're not in my space. And I'm watching them spend their fortunes to try and develop something that there isn't sense. So do your homework. Learning how to delegate's huge. Manage your money is a big one. But again, had I known how to do a pro forma back then, or had access to someone, or for that matter, that was such a thing, I could have saved myself a lot of headaches. So you really want to track your money, be really intimate with your finances, learn how to delegate, and overall be a good person, and always be willing to learn. That's tough. You get some new employees a lot of times, and if you're not going to micromanage them and let them do their job, there's more one way to complete a project, and you got to be open.
Yeah. Well, and initially when we met, and like this is a testimony to continue to learn. I think it was at a networking group that you were a part of. I think I had attended when Rick, who managed all our PPC, like he had joined the group for a little while and whatnot. Yeah. And it always was a little profound to me because the group was a good group of people. But I kind of knew some of your successes that you had, and it seemed like from a business perspective, you were quite a bit further along than a lot of the people there. But to be able to humble yourself and listen and learn, and I'm sure you've learned a ton while you've been there, is, I think, important.
Well, ironically, I'm still a part of that particular one. It's going on 7 years, so it's been quite a while. And I ask myself that occasionally, right? At some point, your advertising budgets and marketing and reach will expand some of your earlier marketing endeavors. And so we talked about that earlier, like how do you market? What do you do? We should probably get into that. But I liked that particular group for the connections and the people, and ultimately, as I reflect on it, it's been an opportunity for me to contribute to those young people getting in business. And so I get some work from it. It's great. And I've met a lot of really great people, but I find it more fun to get young entrepreneurs just getting into the business, because we'll get together for lunch and talk about how we can help each other and prevent. We talked earlier, preventing them from making some of the same mistakes I made early on, or also being completely blown away about how smart some of these young kids are, and how they learned and how disciplined they are, and so. Do I need to do that thing still? No. When some of my marketing efforts are reaching 5 to 7 million people a day, why would I go sit with 50, right? So I kind of spoke to why I do that. It's fun.
I know I love it. I love the answer because it's true. Like you can tell it's genuine. But yeah, let's get into marketing. I mean, you've blown up some really good companies and had quite some success. When you're looking at advertising and marketing, and then we'll just use specifically the Orlando Auto Body.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you're looking at when you're evaluating advertising or marketing yourself that do you feel that's helped you be successful?
Well, first of all, everybody's going to make mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I could tell you 20 things I tried that didn't work, and I can tell you in some of those cases they didn't work because we weren't ready for them, or they just don't work, right? There's guys that'll sell you stuff, but you have to have your stuff in order for that to work. You got to track the leads. You got to have a way you answer the phone call. You have to really look at your return on investment on those things, and you can't just wing it. And so there's a lot of earlier investments I winged and hoped. I just was hoping they would work, and so then you eventually get smarter about it. But with every marketing campaign, there may be stuff you have to train in your office to be aware of or adjust to. You can be marketing campaigns can be very complicated. You probably want to stay away from super complicated ones. Your team's already busy, and then the marketing world is always changing. I mean, man, hats off to you. You have to stay on top of a lot of stuff to navigate the industry. But so do you as an entrepreneur. So either find a great agency or stay on top of it. If there's continuing learning and continuing development for yourself, it's to stay on top of the industry that you're in. And if marketing is one of the things you use to improve your industry, you better stay on top of marketing. Yeah. So if you don't, there's all of those things. It's not, it doesn't just happen. I just so I'm in the car space, right? So people are in their cars and they listen to their radios. Right, and they may walk into their office and go right to digital or right to nothing, but they still listen to the radio. And so in my case, it made sense to be on the radio in cars, talking to people. That's one example. You can learn a lot from your competitors. I say that word lightly because I will tell you that my entire career, no matter what industry I'm in, I don't have competitors, I have colleagues. And I treat them that way. Like, look, we're just in the same business. And that's important. I will tell you today, I probably have 10 shops around the valley that send us business because they're too busy. Or when they go out of business, because I befriended them, they sell to me. Or they sell me their people. Or they, if someone comes in and is looking for a job and they don't have a seat for that person, they refer them to me. I can imagine in the agency business, if you're too busy, but you are friends with other agencies, look, this fits their niche.
We do it all the time.
So for people to be entering into any kind of field like people are competitors is already gonna put them at a disadvantage. It's a huge advantage for me to not treat any of my industries like that.
It's such a good mindset, and you hit it on the head. Like, it happens in my agency, our IB company. We have a couple that we really work well with, and they refer a lot of their overflow. Sometimes we'll have to refer out. But yeah, if we treat them as just competitors and all that, and not colleagues, well then nobody wins, and those deals go somewhere else, and that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's just inherent for people to think it's us and them, and just think that for some reason. It's something way back in our in genetics that has us do that. But you want to unwind that a little bit, is my opinion about all of it, and you see what doors open up. But marketing. Well, I mean, it's like anything, right? You look up a company, for me, make sure they're reputable, interview a few people. I'm a first, second, and third opinion type of guy. I want some opinions, and especially with medical and different things, get some opinions, and then talk to testimonials, call their people, work with some good agencies. If you do that, then you're going to be great. If you just wing it, you got to be careful, because everyone's a salesman, and they've got something to gain from selling you something, and you got to know what works, and you got to educate yourself. There's lots of YouTube channels and things that you can educate yourself with, and I subscribe to some of that stuff, so I stay in the know.
Yeah.
When an algorithm changes, I know before I get the email from my agency. You know, and why is that? Well, I just have my attention there, and it is important. Also, I started to say, study your competitors, colleagues. If there's a company that is doing really, really well, I have two things to say about this. If there's a company that's doing really, really well, and they're where you want to be, you should probably study them. What did they do to get there? That's the easiest thing you can do. If they're a competitor, you're going to not do that in some cases, and I don't want, no. Dive in, do some research, figure out how they did it. That falls back to one other thing I like to tell people, because I do see a lot of young people, and including people that work for me, that look, if they could be doing something else that betters their life, go for it. So I'll get in those conversations, and I tell people, it's the old thing, what do you want to do? Well, fine, so long as what you want to do will provide the lifestyle that you want. Both of them have to work. And so I know it worked for me when I was younger. I thought, well, what kind of lifestyle do people have that I like, and now what do they do? Now, do I like what they do? Great, then I'm going to do that. And so often people will lead with passion about something that they like, but at the end of that, is it going to provide the lifestyle you want? And lifestyle includes everything, right? Am I going to be able to, if you're a philanthropist, can I help people? If you're selfish, can I have everything I want out of this life? If it's your family and kids, is this going to provide the kind of lifestyle I want for my kids? And it takes some serious thinking. It makes sense to you? Like in school, they don't really. How do you decide what you want? And if it isn't both of those things, and so then where's the easiest place to look at both of those things? Out in the world with people that are already doing it.
Yeah, no, I think the example is you say that hits my brain. Like, I love teachers because, they go to school and they work hard, and I think they probably are a little underpaid, but they know that. Like, they know that going into it. Like, hey, this is the paycheck, but they love to do it. But if you were to look at that from, I don't know, maybe a different perspective, there's probably things you can do to teach that you can make more money getting out of the system. Maybe, you can teach individually, or you can create your own courses, or you can do all that kind of stuff. But if you want the lifestyle, you have to make sure it matches up. And I think it's good. My dad always told me, find something you love to do and learn to make money with it. You'll be happy the rest of your life.
Fine, if you add the other part that I said, though, and you look to see if it's provided the kind of lifestyle you want with other people doing that, then great. But if it doesn't, it's like taking a college course that there's no career path to at the end of that. Like, a lot of people do that. And so, but back to your teachers thing, right? There are some that don't get paid very well, and there are some that get paid well, and the circumstances are different. And I would say nurses and teachers are, I have a soft spot for both of them. That's a very selfless position, very a lot of compassionate and loving people in those fields, but how do you help those people do better? And quite frankly, there's a lot now. Thank God it isn't 1970. You can be a teacher and have a side gig. You could create some curriculums. Quite frankly, we know this, right? Put 100 teachers in a room, and some of them will excel more than others, or 100 people in a room, and so it's complex, right? Like, you could give them a great idea, and only so many of them will do it. So what do you want, and how important is your lifestyle or your time to you to have what you have? Because we're here for a short time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, you got a lot going on. I really appreciate you coming down and taking the time today. Anything else that you want the audience to hear is near and dear to your heart? I know you're a family man, 4 kids.
Yeah, I don't know. I love my life. If I had it to do her over again, what would I maybe do different is probably a good thing to leave with. And it's, I would work smarter, not harder, which is what I started to say earlier, right? And I didn't know that. And for all those people that don't have that opportunity, there's nothing wrong with doing it the way I do it. You just got to be aware that there's a payoff there, right?
Right.
Like I killed myself to get where I am, and would I do that again? Because you do it's not just yourself you're killing. There's people in your life that are suffering around you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Absolutely.
I know you could see
Family,
that from
kids.
where you are, family, kids, even some close friends, and or even close relationships. And so, you know, I would probably nurture my relationships more through the way. I've not been mean to people necessarily, but I haven't been given quite the attention I used to. Now that changed when I was 39. Like, I had to make a lot of phone calls and apologize for who I was being the previous 20 years. And I made a lot of those phone calls, if not all of them. It was a long year. But I would, you know, you get older and relationships are pretty important, you know.
Yeah.
You also, you know, if you're in bad ones, get out of them.
Mm-hmm.
You can't pick your parents. If it's abusive and bad, get out of it. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
The length and time in which you've known somebody isn't a justification for a relationship. It's how healthy is a relationship, and whether that's a family member or a perfect stranger. I've met people in the last few years that are my people. Mm-hmm. It's only been a few years, not 52 years. Right. So that's a very, I think a person wants to watch. I think people put a lot of weight in long-term relationships, but are they healthy? So I would just nurture my relationships more.
I love that, and it's true. I mean, relationships. There's a guy, Bradley, I listen to his podcast, and one of the things he says all the time is the new currency is relationships. And it's been like that forever. It's just the way he says it, but it's important. Like, you know, you and I know each other, and any way I can ever benefit you, I will always try to do so. And, you know, but you meet and have these relationships, like that's fulfillment of life.
Yeah,
so,
it really is.
And really, you forget about it, though. Like, I just went through this whole episode that we talked about, I don't need to get into, but, you know, near dying and all this kind of stuff. And you know what? Damn it. Relationships are a lot more important than the money. Or, I mean, granted, got to have money to live and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I want my wife to have me around, my kids to have me around, and my friends and my business people and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, well, I'll end with that. The world needs you around, man. It needs good people.
Thank you,
man. Great guy.
Appreciate that. Well, great having you on. Appreciate your time. Guys, I know you got a ton out of this. Make sure you like it. Leave a comment for Shane. Subscribe to our channel. We've got a ton coming up. Great guests, but this was a special episode. So appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next time.